Welcome to Origins, the podcast that dives deep into the business of venture capital, where we learn how the people behind the capital, both GPs and LPs, make decisions. I'm Beezer Clarkson, your LP co-host from Sapphire Partners, where we aim to invest in exceptional early-stage venture capital managers, ranging from emerging to established and franchise VCs. With my co-host Nick Charles on family leave, I'm joined by a special guest co-host today, who is also no stranger to Origins. I'm so excited to welcome into the studio my fellow partner at Sapphire Partners, Nate Leung. Nate, thank you for joining on the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here. Always a pleasure to be back on Origins. Thanks so much for having me.
So I've been doing this Minisode series on franchise funds with LPs, and they've given some really terrific perspectives from the LP side on what makes for a franchise, which let's loosely define it as a venture firm that's been able to be so productive on their returns that they have zero problems fundraising and they're kind of launched as far as a go-forward capability. And they've been talking a lot about what that means. And for this episode, we wanted to now hear from one of the best, arguably, franchise firms and one of the investors who is also an incredible investor, and bring it back to what does the world look like from a GP doing the doing, and get their insights and attributes of what it takes to be a great investor and firm. And the awesomeness was that we had Nina, who is a partner at Index Ventures based in SF, come on and talk about her opinions and views and what she thinks it takes to be a great investor, her work with Service Titan, all the goodies. Needless to say, I was very excited to spend time with her. I think she's tremendous as an investor and as a human, and thought she had all sorts of interesting takeaways from her trading days on the bond floor to London, the launch of her career. Anyway, I'm going to stop and just say that I'm excited to hear your thoughts and your thinking and what you thought about what was going on, and chat about this with you.
Frankly, I think there was so much timeless wisdom in the conversation, as you mentioned. And where I was thinking of starting was sort of at the end, where she was describing how Index has become a franchise fund, really in keeping the main thing, and, how they did that in terms of, focusing on core principles of being exceptional early stage investors and partnering with entrepreneurs, not chasing trends like crossover funds or crypto, or really doubling down on backing these entrepreneurs and supporting them from the earliest stages.
So love that you brought this up. I totally agree, because one of the things that Stephen Bluestein said on a past podcast was exactly, we were actually talking about how do people that are sort of franchise and launch funds, what are some of the missteps that people make? And he had talked about exactly this. It happens that people get distracted or expand too much, or whatever the right term is, but they kind of lose the main thing, whatever their main thing that got them there is. And I was playing in my mind, and I think Index is such a lovely example of this, of firms that have decades of experience and are able to focus on the main thing. But that doesn't mean not expanding at all, just somehow figuring out their power alley and expanding the power alley, but not getting distracted, as Nina said, and undermining the core strength.
Yeah, and I also love some of the nuances that you both got into around what's happening in the market, right, with both in terms of liquidity and IPOs and M&A and sort of market conditions. But she really kept kind of bringing it back around to some of these core views that, for example, great companies can go public at any time, right? And it's kind of more about being, having that internal preparation and readiness, to do so kind of regardless of market condition. And some of the surprises, in that she has seen in the current, exciting, but also maybe scary AI market, right? Where a company could be at 50 million of ARR, for example, and still not have clear product market fit.
Oh, yes. Oh, I have so many thoughts and feelings on this. I mean, it strikes a little bit of terror in the LP heart, to be honest, half of what she said, which I think was so well said and so appropriate, which is exactly this, that you can actually, the reality is there can be all this ARR and it's not product market fit. And how do we as LPs assess that? Because she will see that, but we won't. And so you have to have this communication. And I love the fact that she said in tandem with this, that 2025 is the year of reckoning. for these reasons. And I was curious because you've been a direct investor in the past, and we love having that viewpoint on our team. Where do you stand or sit on this 2025 year of reckoning? How much product market fits out there? I don't know. What's your crystal ball say?
It's amazing that the DeepSeek moment happened, right at the beginning of the year. And I think it's emblematic of what we're seeing overall in the venture market, which is that the rate of change continues to accelerate, which is really exciting, but also, again, frightening. The opportunity set is massive and growing quickly, yet also very noisy. She touched on crowded categories and the need for consolidation. I am optimistic, regardless of where public markets go this year, and we can touch on that later. But the two of you agreed on a more positive outlook for M&A, partially with the regulatory environment changing, but also because with the DeepSeek moment, the potential shift from would-be acquirers, shifting capital from instead of capital expenditures to doing M&A and to finding opportunities and acquiring talent, for example, in AI. I couldn't agree more in terms of, the need for some consolidation in crowded categories, frankly, unlocking talent, unlocking capital, recycling into this new era of opportunity.
I speak on behalf of all LPs. Please let there be more distributions. Maybe that's a politically incorrect thing to say, but it feels that way when you go into many rooms. And given what Nina said about the need for more creativity, imagination, ingenuity around things, and what she said was this is the year of ROI, which I don't think you get unless you have those other attributes. Who knows? Let's hope our crystal balls are going to push things along.
One other thing that struck me was going back to Index being a franchise fund and investing kind of all along the stages of a company's development. But the way that Nina kind of talked about her connection with the founders and what gave her conviction kind of early on is that, they were from these incredible schools and had great pedigree, well-trained, could have had any job, more lucrative, potentially types of jobs in the shorter term, but were committed to building software in, the services space where their families, were from, and having this deep connection to that market really kind of reminds me of the conversation that you had with Wes about the kinds of founders that they connect with and back, these mission-driven founders. And again, it's this principle of backing these incredible people who want to change the world, right? And have this broader purpose, which is why companies like ServiceTitan, right, as they go public and continue their journey of being an enduring company, they then, give back and start to, like, they open the office in Armenia, as you mentioned before. And there's this bigger purpose. And I think that's just so exciting, and I have so much gratitude for that kind of approach in our market.
Yes, it really resonates on the heartstrings. And it also resonates on the through line of how do people find the great companies early? Because there was something very similar with Wes, and that they're looking at these companies are going to be significant in what they're able to accomplish and do. And it's not derivative in we're the X for X, and it's nice, but it's the likelihood that it's going to really change a market or provide a huge unmet need is just smaller. And I know as an LP, it's not our job to pick what the direct companies look like, thankfully. But there does seem to be some consistency in what the power law company, the fund returners look like. And they do have this ability to really create a market or move a market versus nice to haves, which can tuck in and do other things, but they're not going to be these power law companies, which, as we all know, is the backbone of what really creates venture returns versus, private equity 1 to 2 to 3x return. I'm now speaking your world because you are the direct investor, but that's my observation.
I love it.
Well, Nate, thank you so much for joining us on Origins. It's always so much fun to hang out with you in the office and online, and really appreciate your wisdoms. We'll miss Nick, but love having these conversations at Sapphire Partners, and now we get to share them with our listeners.
Thank you again for having me, and I'm excited to keep the main thing at Sapphire.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Minisode of Origins, the show where we discuss the venture capital ecosystem through the lens of a GP and an LP, though in this episode, 2 LPs. We'll be back soon with our next episode of Origins, where we're going to continue our LP franchise mini-series with Thomas, who is a longtime friend and co-investor with me, partner at LGT Capital Partners, and who actually might not even like the term franchise. You can find that right here in this feed. And while you're there, please rate and review the podcast. As always, it's super helpful for other people listening to Venture Insights to find our show, and we love the feedback. We're always here to improve. I'm Beezer Clarkson, and on behalf of my GP co-host, Nick Charles, we'll be back soon. Thanks for listening.